When I think back to that year, it feels like my mind walks barefoot through broken glass. Every memory cuts a little, but I can't stop retracing my steps. Maybe part of me still wants to understand what happened in that room. Or maybe it's the room that remembers me. I was 14 when my parents sent me to St. Clair Academy, a boarding school tucked between quiet woods and endless fog. It was the kind of place that smelled like old books and disinfectant, like the ghosts of 1,000 sleepless nights. My roommate's name was Eli Mercer. Quiet kid. The kind of quiet that isn't shy, it's heavy. Like he was carrying something he didn't want to share. The first day I moved in, he handed me a folded piece of paper. No eye contact. Just, you should read this. It was a list. At first, I thought it was a joke, until I read it. No mirrors after dark. No whistling. No frogs. No salt. Salt. I remember staring at that word for a long time. Salt. What kind of rule is that? He caught me reading it and said softly, "It burns them." I laughed, because what else do you do when someone says something insane? But he didn't laugh. He just turned away and whispered something under his breath. That was the first night I heard him whisper, and it never stopped. Every night after lights out, he'd mumble into the dark. Not words I could recognize, just a low, rhythmic hiss, like he was arguing with someone only he could see. Sometimes he'd pause, like he was listening. Then he'd start again. I told myself it was just sleep talking. But it wasn't. Because one night, I heard a second voice. Not loud. Just a breath between his sentences. A response. I remember sitting up, heart hammering, and seeing Eli's silhouette sitting cross-legged on his bed, head tilted, like he was listening to someone standing right beside him. But there was no one there. That night, I barely slept. Days turned into weeks, and curiosity turned into dread. I noticed he kept a small black notebook under his mattress. Always locked, always guarded. One afternoon, while he was in class, I lifted his mattress and found it. Only a few pages had writing. Names. Dozens of them. Some were crossed out. Others weren't. And near the bottom, my name. Caleb. My stomach dropped. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't want to. But from that moment, I couldn't look at him the same. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling he knew. He didn't speak, didn't eat, just watched me. And then, around midnight, I woke up to the sound of breathing. Too close. I opened my eyes, and there he was, Eli, standing beside my bed, smiling. Not a normal smile, wide, frozen, like his face was stuck in a mask. His hands hovered over my blanket like he'd been about to touch me. But stopped. I screamed. He didn't flinch. He just said, "You were talking in your sleep," then turned and lay back down. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I asked him what that was about. He blinked at me, confused, calm, said he didn't remember. Like none of it happened. I started avoiding the room. Slept in friends' dorms. Ate anywhere else. But that didn't help. Because the fear followed me. It wasn't just him anymore. It was the room. The silence. The smell. The way my reflection in the window sometimes looked like it wasn't moving right. One night, I came back late. My bed was covered in something moving. A snake. I jumped back, yelling. Eli didn't even look surprised. He said, "Don't worry. They like you." Then he opened a glass jar, and the snake slithered straight into it on its own. I left the room that night shaking. But what came later? There's no explaining it. A few nights after that, I woke up completely frozen. Sleep paralysis, that's what I told myself later. But what I saw, I'll never forget. The air above my bed was rippling, like heat. Then it darkened, thickened. A shape started forming. It looked like smoke, but alive. And from it, a hand stretched out, thin, black, sharp. It touched my bed frame and started dragging its claws down the wood. Screech, screech, screech. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Then suddenly, it recoiled, like something burned it, and burst around the room, knocking over chairs, books, everything. And in one violent motion, it shot through the window. The sound of glass shattering woke me. Except, I wasn't dreaming, because the window was broken, glass was still falling, and my bed frame was scratched. Deep. I looked over at Eli. He was sound asleep, snoring that I shook him, screaming his name, but he wouldn't wake. When he finally did, the next morning, he stared at the damage, then at me and said coldly, "You shouldn't have touched my book." Then he hissed, not like a joke, like something animal. And for a moment, his eyes didn't look human. We got into a fight. The RA came, separated us, and sent me to another room. The next day, he was gone. No trace. No bags. No goodbye. The administration told me he transferred, but there were no records. His name wasn't on any class lists after that night. Sometimes I tell myself I imagined it, that I was just a scared kid. But then I remember one thing, one detail I can't explain. The notebook. They said they cleared out the room. But when I went back for my stuff, it was sitting there on my desk. Only this time, every name was crossed out, except one. Mine, and under it, a single new word written in ink that looked wet. Waiting.